The stop sign lay in the dirt like a discarded toy, its red face mocking the quiet street. HOA Karen, all 300 pounds of her, smirked as if she'd just won a war nobody else knew was being fought. She stood in the fading light of the suburban cul-de-sac, her floral dress clashing with the manicured lawns around her. To HOA, this wasn't just a stop sign, it was a personal affront, a symbol of rules she didn't write and therefore didn't respect. As president of the neighborhood HOA, she declared it an eyesore at last week's meeting, her voice dripping with the kind of superiority that made neighbors grit their teeth. "It blocks my gardenia's sunlight," she'd whined, as if the safety of children crossing to the park mattered less than her prize blooms. Her sister, Lynn, ever the loyal sidekick, had nodded along, her own scowl mirroring HOA's. Together, they were a force of petty tyranny, ruling the Willow Creek HOA with iron fists and laminated bylaws. The conflict had simmered for weeks. The stop sign, installed after a near miss with a toddler on a tricycle, was a hard-won victory for the neighborhood's parents. But HOA saw it as a challenge to her authority. "Who approved this without my signature?" she demanded, slamming her manicured nails on the HOA meeting table. No one dared answer. The sign stayed, but HOA's resentment festered. Last night, under cover of darkness, she and Lynn had crept out with a wrench and a crowbar, giggling like teenagers pulling a prank. They'd loosened the bolts, yanked the pole from the ground, and dumped it in the bushes. "No one tells me what goes in my neighborhood," HOA had muttered, brushing dirt off her hands. By morning, the absence of the stop sign caused chaos. A delivery truck barreled through the intersection, nearly clipping Mrs. Thompson's golden retriever. Kids waiting for the school bus darted across the street, unaware of the missing safeguard. Neighbors whispered, then shouted, as realization dawned. "It was HOA," said Javier, the single dad who'd fought for the sign after his daughter's close call. Who else would be this reckless? The rumors spread like wildfire, and by noon, a small crowd had gathered at the intersection, staring at the empty hole where the sign once stood. HOA, oblivious to the brewing storm, was pruning her gardenias when Javier marched up, his face taut with fury. "You took it down, didn't you?" he demanded, pointing at the bare patch of dirt. HOA's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into that signature sneer. "Prove it," she snapped, tossing her pruning shears into a bucket. Lynn appeared at her side, arms crossed, mirroring her sister's defiance. "This is our neighborhood," Lynn added, her voice sharp. "We decide what's best." The argument escalated fast. Neighbors joined in, their voices rising over the hum of cicadas. Mrs. Thompson, usually timid, shook her fist. "You endangered my kids," she shouted. A teenager filmed the scene on his phone, the footage already streaming to the neighborhood group chat. HOA, unfazed, doubled down. "You're all overreacting," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "It's just a sign. If you'd maintained your yards properly, we wouldn't need it cluttering my view." The crowd's outrage reached a fever pitch just as a police cruiser rolled up. Officer Daniels, a no-nonsense cop with a reputation for fairness, stepped out, his partner trailing behind. "We got a call about vandalism," he said, eyeing the fallen sign. HOA's smirk faltered, but she quickly recovered, puffing out her chest. "This is HOA property," she declared. "I have every right to remove it." Lynn nodded vigorously, her chins wobbling. "Exactly. We're protecting the aesthetic." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, removing a traffic sign isn't an HOA decision. It's a felony. Public endangerment." The words hit like a slap. HOA's face froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Lynn gasped, clutching her sister's arm. "A felony?" she squeaked. The neighbors fell silent, the weight of the moment sinking in. Javier's eyes gleamed with grim satisfaction. "You didn't know?" he asked, his voice low but cutting. "Or did you just not care?" The officers didn't cuff HOA and Lynn right away. They took statements, photographed the scene, and retrieved the sign from the bushes where the sisters had stashed it. The evidence was damning. Fingerprints on the pole, a crowbar in HOA's garage with fresh scratches, and the teenager's video showing HOA's car parked near the intersection at midnight. As the crowd watched, HOA's bravado crumbled. "This is a misunderstanding," she stammered, her voice shrill. "I'm a respected member of this community." Lynn, less composed, burst into tears, muttering about unfair persecution. But the neighbors weren't buying it. Years of HOA's rain her fines for unapproved mailboxes, her snide comments about tacky lawn decorations, her insistence on controlling every blade of grass had eroded any goodwill. "You've gone too far," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice trembling but firm. "You put our kids at risk for your ego." The teenager, still filming, zoomed in on HOA's face, capturing the moment her smugness gave way to panic. Daniels explained the charges: vandalism, reckless endangerment, and potential civil lawsuits if anyone had been hurt. "You're looking at fines, maybe jail time," he said, his tone matter-of-fact. HOA's knees buckled, and Lynn had to steady her. The sisters' empire of petty power was collapsing, and the neighborhood watched with a mix of relief and vindication. Someone nobody knew who had tacked a handwritten sign to a nearby fence. "Karen's reckoning. Justice served." It fluttered in the breeze, a quiet testament to the community's triumph. As the officers led HOA and Lynn to the cruiser for questioning, the sisters' voices rose in a chorus of excuses. "We didn't mean harm," HOA wailed. "It was just a mistake," Lynn echoed. But the neighbors turned away, their anger giving way to resolve. They'd already begun discussing a new HOA board, one that prioritized safety over ego. Javier knelt by the hole where the stop sign had stood, vowing to have it reinstalled by morning. "For my daughter," he said softly, "and for everyone else's kids." The aftermath was swift. The sisters faced court dates and mounting legal fees. HOA's prized gardenias, neglected during her legal battles, wilted under the summer sun. Lynn moved away, unable to face the neighbors' cold stares. The HOA was restructured, with Javier elected as president. The stop sign went back up, gleaming red and proud, a symbol of a community that had finally stood up to tyranny. But the real change was quieter. Neighbors started talking more, sharing stories of HOA's reign over coffee and backyard barbecues. They laughed about her ridiculous fines, but they also reflected on what they'd learned. That silence in the face of petty power only emboldens it. The teenager's video went viral in the neighborhood, a reminder that justice, when it comes, is often captured in the unlikeliest moments. HOA's fall wasn't just a punishment, it was a lesson. She'd built her kingdom on control, but it was her disregard for others that brought it crashing down. The stop sign, once a point of contention, now stood as a monument to a community that refused to be bullied. And as the sun set on Willow Creek, the neighbors slept a little easier, knowing their voices had finally been heard. The end.